This year's Trail Bike of the Year test contained 20 mountain bikes ridden back to back to find the best. They all had 120 to 150 mil of rear wheel travel, and they all cost between £2,800 and £3,650. One of those bikes was the Norco Sight A1 29er. This bike costs £2,950 in the UK or $3,700 in the US, and it made it into our top 5 bikes. Norco used an aluminium frame for the Sight, and this gives 130mm of rear wheel travel. The frame uses a relatively normal 4-bar suspension linkage, and it comes with quite a big rocker in the middle of the frame. The rear triangle is asymmetrical, so the 2 chainstays don't match if you look side on. Also, if you look down the seat tube, it's got a kink in it, and this is there to give a nice bit of space for everything to work properly and to ensure that there's plenty of stiffness in that area as well. Norco haven't gone well with the geometry on the Sight. The size large has a reach of 435mm and has a 66.5 degree head angle with a relatively slack 73.5 degree seat angle. However, there's a BB drop of 33mm, which places the BB nice and low. The size large has 435mm chainstays. Almost uniquely, Norco changed the length of the chainstays depending on the size of the bike. This means that a size medium gets 430mm stays and an extra large gets 440mm. Norco only offer the 29er in medium, large and extra large. If you want a small bike, you'll have to go with the 650B version of the Sight. The Sight was one of the least expensive bikes in Trail Bike of the Year this year, and you can buy it through bricks and mortar shops. In the UK, that's through Evans. Up front, there's a RockShox Pike RC fork with 150mm of travel. The drivetrain consists of SRAM GX and NX. You still get that 12-speed spread, but it is an NX cassette, so it's an 11 to 50 tooth, rather than the wider 10 to 50 tooth of GX Eagle. DT Swiss hubs are built into WTB I29 rims. This means they have an internal width of 29mm, and these support the Maxxis wide trail Minion tyres. It's 2.5-inch front and back. Fox provide the performance level DPX2 shock, and this has a piggyback. SRAM provide the Guide R brakes with 180mm rotors. Finishing the package is a Trans X dropper post. You'll get a 125mm drop on the size medium, and the sizes large and extra large get a 150mm drop. In the cockpit, you get a race-face turbine bar with a Norco stem. Last year's Sight really impressed in Trail Bike of the Year, as it had loads of confidence when the trails pointed down, and that feeling is retained in 2019. However, the general mix of bikes in Trail Bike of the Year this year felt a little bit more descent orientated, and so the Norco actually felt kind of a bit more all-roundy. When it comes to the climbs, the 15 kilo weight means that the Sight probably isn't going to get you any KOMs, nor are the big 2.5-inch wide trail tyres. There's a small 30-tooth chainring, and when combined with that 50-tooth sprocket on the cassette, you can get up some very steep terrain here. The 2.5-inch wide tyres do add a little bit of drag on smoother surfaces, but if it is nice and loose, then there is plenty of traction on offer, especially as you can run those tyres relatively soft thanks to the wide rims. If the seat tube was steeper than the 73.5, it would put your hips in a slightly better position over the pedals, and that's probably our biggest gripe with how this bike climbed. The shape isn't particularly radical, so it is quite easy to jump on this bike and just go out and ride. Some longer bikes take a little bit more getting used to. With that wide front tyre and a front end that isn't too high, it's quite easy to push the bike into the corners to get plenty of grip, so there's a lot of confidence there. Small bump sensitivity at the back is fairly good, so it does maintain its traction on those flatter, more pedally trails over rocks and roots. Despite having only 130mm of travel, the Sight did impress us last year and this year with its descending capabilities. As the shock travels through its stroke, the suspension linkage gives plenty of progression, and while it only has that short amount of travel, we never felt that our feet were getting blown off the pedals on bigger hits. It is nicely controlled. However, it's not a hugely magic carpet-like ride. There is still some chatter through the pedals, a little bit of feedback there too. Some people really like this, others will find it a touch distracting. Despite this, it's still very confident on those big descents. I think this comes down to 2 reasons really. The RockShox Pike RC is a really good fork. The chassis is great, as is the damping and the air spring. Some bikes in the test came with a Fox 36, and arguably this is a better foot for descending, but for an all-round trail bike, the Pike is an excellent option. The other factor is those wide tyres. They might not be the triple compound, all singing, all dancing versions, but you've got to remember that this is one of the least expensive bikes in the test. One of the upgrades on this version of the bike over the one we had last year is that Piggyback Shock. The Piggyback on the DPX2 means there's more oil volume, and this makes it more resistant to heat buildup, giving more consistency the longer you ride. In comparison to some of the other bikes in this year's test, the Norco is a really good all-rounder, especially considering its price. There are some changes we might make. For example, the Guide R brakes aren't the most powerful, they're not the most bitey. We'd probably try and upgrade those at some point, or even stick a 200mm rotor on the front. This would help when things get really choppy and just want that extra bit of power. We would like to see a longer reach and a slacker head angle to really maximise the descending capabilities of this bike. However, I think if you did that, you would really start to notice that it only has 130mm of travel at the back. If you're looking for a good all-round trail bike that might not be the best at the climbs but is nice and confident on the way back down, the Norco Sight is a good option, especially if you haven't got super deep pockets. If you want to see more bikes from Bike of the Year, don't forget to like and subscribe. In the meantime, leave us a comment, let us know what you think.